how do you actually begin to rediscover who you are after a heartbreak? What is up, my dear friends? My name is Tyler Joe Stratton, and I am the author of the best-selling book, The Big Three, helping you build joyful and loving relationships with yourself, others, and God after heartbreak. And today we're talking about how do we rediscover ourselves after a heartbreak. I find that this is one of the biggest topics that we can all begin to discuss after a heartbreak, because one of the things that I learned after I went through my heartbreak in like 2015 was I completely lost who I was. I lost a sense of self. I lost a sense of purpose. I lost a sense of identity. And I found it rather challenging to rediscover myself. And I found it really hard to reconnect with myself. And I kind of just felt almost alone at times. And I just want to be able to walk you through that as I went through many years of rediscovering who I am, rebuilding who I am. And I want to talk to you today on behalf of helping you understand that rediscovering yourself doesn't have to be that difficult. You know, I understand that when we lose our significant others, that life can feel dull. It can feel rather confusing, lost, and lonely. And when we go through such a traumatic breakup, whether it be a divorce or, you guys might have been together for a couple months or a couple of years, I think that no matter the amount of time that you are with them, we all go through the same sort of suffering and same sort of heartbreak. And today I want to help you understand that there is a way that you can actually begin to turn this breakup into a blessing. And there's a purpose behind this pain. And I hope that this episode brings you hope and joy, because at the end of the day, that's what the Happy Heart Academy is about. Ideally, the Happy Heart Academy was created to help you live more from your heart rather than your hurt, and teach you how to be able to create happiness long term, more so after heartbreak. And, because it's a journey that I took. It's a journey that I successfully, I think, fulfilled. And along that heartbreak, I found my purpose. I found my passion. I found my life's mission. And I think that was a beautiful gift. I would probably go through my heartbreak a couple more times if I could rediscover everything that I've already discovered. Because during these breakups, there's a breakthrough. And we're just going to dive right in and talk a little bit about how do you begin to rediscover who you are after you felt like you've lost yourself in that breakup. Most of the time when you're in a relationship, you lose yourself in the service of others. You lose yourself, you create this new identity, and this identity has to do with you becoming your lover's lover. You become your significant other. No, I'm not just Tyler anymore. I am Nicole's fiance. No, I am not just Tyler. I am, a caretaker. I am, we label ourselves, and when we label ourselves, when we hold this identity and that identity is ripped away from us, we find it rather challenging to be able to let go of our heartbreak, because I find that it's the heartbreak is not that difficult to overcome. It's losing ourselves that is very difficult. Like, we understand there will come a point in time in your journey that you'll begin to understand that your heartbreak was meant to be, that your heartbreak was something that you had to go through in order to rediscover and find yourself. There's two paths that you can take during every heartbreak, and the first path is pain and misery, where you just dwell in the suffering and you never are capable of moving on. That's the first one. The second one is more of a progressive path. It's a path of forward momentum. It's a path of happiness. It's a path of hope. And it's a path that I highly recommend you take. But there's some steps that you might need to take prior to that. And, on my TikTok, I get asked a lot, how do I find myself after I lost myself? How do I rediscover myself? How do I move on after heartbreak? Well, today we're going to just talk strictly about how do you actually rediscover yourself? So first off, I think when you lose yourself during your heartbreak, I think the first step you have to really do is you've got to disconnect in order to reconnect with yourself. And really what that means is you've got to kind of give yourself space and time to let go and just be, or just sit in the pain. One of we sometimes overcomplicate this idea of, I completely lost myself. Tyler, I don't know who I am. What do I do? How do I find myself? I don't even know where to begin. Well, let's pretend that you don't know yourself, because that's exactly where you are. If you got into a new relationship and you didn't know them, like this was the first date you were on, how do you actually get to know somebody? Well, you take them out on a date, right? You ask them questions, you spend time with them, you engage with them, you're present with them, you learn about them, you discover them, right? But that can only happen as if you actually create the space to get to know them. So that's why I say you have to disconnect to reconnect, to create the space to get to know yourself. You have to kind of do exactly what you would do when you try to meet someone new that you haven't met yet. Like, how do you discover them? How do you rediscover them? How do you get to know about them? Well, like I said, you take them out on a date. You ask them questions. You sit with them. You try new things with them. And ideally, you do the same thing with yourself. But this time, instead of it being focused on somebody else, you focus more inward on yourself. And this can be uncomfortable, because during this heartbreak, that's the last thing we want to be, is alone. We don't really want to sit alone in our thoughts, because that's where the suffering is. But, one of the greatest things in regards to sitting alone is you actually have to feel your pain in order to heal your pain. So disconnecting to reconnect with yourself, the first thing I would really tell you to do is, step away from the noise, step away from trying to find somebody else to cope with your current problem and pain. Don't run outward, run inward. Take yourself out, sit with yourself, be mindful, get curious again, ask questions that you would ask someone else if you were genuinely wanting to get to know them. I did this. I put this in my journal. I got to know Tyler. I got to know myself. How do I get to know myself? Well, I spent time with myself. How do you get to know anybody? You spend time with them. The less time you spend with them, the less you get to know them. Let's not overcomplicate this. Rediscovering who you are is going to be a lot more simple than trying to learn about and figure out somebody else. And because you have been with you the entire time, now all we need to do is dial out the noise just a little bit, turn the volume down, eliminate the distractions that are taking you away from yourself. When you focus on anybody else's agenda, you lose your own purpose. You lose the focus on yourself. You lose and drown yourself out. When you're focused on other people's agendas, when you focus on distractions, during this heartbreak, you're probably sitting on, watching Netflix. Nothing wrong with that. That's a conversation for another time. But you're doing things to distract and drown out the noise. You cannot distract and drown out the noise. You've got to feel it to heal it, and you've got to give yourself the space to be able to just sit and journal or talk to yourself. Literally speak to yourself, talk to yourself, because you're already doing it in here. Just verbally express, and ask yourself questions and answer those questions and get to know yourself and kindly speak to yourself. I just did that this morning, kindly speaking to myself. It helped me through my heartbreak. It's helped me through multiple other stressors in my life. It's going to help you. And I think that, once you spend time with yourself and you get to know yourself by asking yourself questions and taking yourself out on dates, or, and when I say dates, if you're a guy listening to the podcast, here's kind of what I mean. I take myself out on a date about once a week. How do I do that? I go out and play disc golf. Not sure if you know what disc golf is, but ideally it's when you throw frisbee into a, this net thing. I'm out in fields. It's a lot of fun. I'm out in nature. I'm out just kind of performing and practicing my own, hobby, kind of thing. So ideally, when I go out and I practice disc golf, I'm also practicing being with myself. Some people on here might like to hunt, might like to fish, might like to, go bowling, might like to, and it's just a matter of just doing that with yourself, or maybe with just a friend. But you're taking yourself out on this date, so to say. It's not like a movie date. It's not like you have to go out and eat alone. You can do those things, but I don't want you to think that, well, I don't want to go to a diner and just sit by myself, and sit by myself and, feel like, I'm a complete loner and I don't have, much to, I feel awkward. I don't want you to go through that right now. What I want you to go through is just the experience of, it's going to be fun. It's not tough. It's just sitting with yourself and journaling. Another great tip on how to get to know yourself is by spending more time with yourself is through meditation. Meditation has helped me tremendously heal my gut. When I had very bad gut issues, it helped me to decrease my stress. It helped me get to drown out the negative noise, or become more aware of the negative noise, I should say, because like there was a time I remember that I wasn't aware of like all the negative chatter going in my head. I just knew I felt miserable, but I couldn't understand why until I got into meditation. I started practicing meditation. Meditation helped me become aware of these two voices in my head. There's this very kind, peaceful, loving Tyler. Then there's this just asshole of a Tyler, basically, like this guy that literally is like, you're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. No, you're never going to be able to help enough people. You're never going to be able to step into your true essence, and you're going to always struggle with X, Y, and Z, and you'll never. I have that voice too, but you know what? That voice is becoming a little bit more quiet because of meditation. And you're probably feeling a lack of self-worth, a lack of self-confidence, a lack of love. And what meditation will help you do is really be able to understand, like, that's that little asshole that you have as well. And you will be able to recreate yourself and listen to the better version of yourself as you continue to do your meditations. So ideally, I'm hoping that you're finding this helpful, but the analogy I want to give you to use is treat yourself the same way that you would treat a new date. Take themselves out. Spend time with them, right? Take them out, spend time with them, ask them questions, buy them a nice dinner, talk to them kindly, be present, be patient, have grace, hold your space to create an environment that's a healthy dating environment. You just gotta take that person away, and instead of taking them out on a date, you're taking yourself out on a date. You're spending time with you. I'm telling you, this is probably one of the greatest things that you can do for yourself in a time that you don't want to do it. Usually when you don't want to do something, it's the thing that you really have to do. You know that when it comes to schoolwork, college work, it doesn't matter. Work, it doesn't, no matter what. If it's something you don't want to do, it's something you have to do most of the time, especially if it's something you don't want to do. It's definitely something, like I said, you have to do. And this is just one of those things that you have to do in order to overcome your heartbreak and rediscover and recreate yourself. One of the better things, and that's all about like rediscovering yourself. Let's talk about how you actually create yourself. Well, in order to create a more confident individual, or the ideal individual that you want to become, I need you to spend some time with you once again. This is the idea that you've got to sit down, and the best thing to do is either, I like to journal, I like to type. It just depends on how fast my thoughts are going and what kind of mood I'm in. If I'm really like thinking quickly, I'll type it out. If I'm just kind of in a meditative, peaceful place, I'll write it out and journal it out. But either way, I want you to picture and sit down and turn on, drink a tea, turn on some peaceful, meditative YouTube music, or happy music, or you can look up binaural beats and different frequencies to help you increase your happiness chemicals within your brain due to stimulation of music. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to be able to spend some time with yourself, set a peaceful environment, and begin to write in your ideal self. That means, who do you want to really become? That's the question that you've got to answer. Like, who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? I need you to answer these questions. Like, this is so, so important, because it's not always about who we want to become, but it's more importantly, how do we want to feel? How do we want to experience each and every single day? Knowing that it could be our last. We don't really know. So it's like, sit down and get curious about you. Get curious about being a better version of yourself. It is absolutely possible. I've done it myself. There was a time where I was fighting depression. I was fighting thoughts of suicide. There's times that I was questioning my life. There were times when I completely just lost myself. And now, I understand my purpose. I understand my mission. I understand my passion. I understand my lover. I've attracted a beautiful fiance that I'll be getting married to and next year in 2022. You begin to attract beautiful essence when you become a beautiful essence, right? And I want you to be able to experience that. But you're just at the beginning of your journey, or you might be in the middle of your journey. It doesn't matter where you're at. It's always good to reevaluate and recreate who you want to be, because I believe that unhappiness can really come from when your overall life story, what you believe, how life is supposed to be, isn't matching your reality that you're living in today. So when you have this ideal life, when you're like, oh, this is how I believe life should be. I should be at 30 years old. I should be making, $100,000. I should be married. I should have a kid on the way. I should have a house. And your reality is currently not in alignment to that current life story. Unhappiness will reside. So what I need you to do is sit back, relax, take a deep breath, enjoy this moment, and start to create who is it that you want to be? How do you want to feel? Start writing about that. What is it that you want to do with your life? I believe that there's two things that can really begin to increase your happiness after heartbreak and help you rediscover yourself, is understanding that there's two things that will lead to your lasting happiness. It's growth and contribution. How are you going to grow yourself every single day, and how are you going to contribute? So I hope you found this episode helpful. It is one that I definitely wanted to speak about here a little bit. If you need any questions answered, be sure to either head over to the Happy Heart Academy. The link will be in the description below. However, you can also find it at community.happyheartacademy.com. And there's a bunch of free resources there that you'll find helpful in order to help you just create happiness. It could be creating happiness right now or happiness after heartbreak, either or. Ideally, I'm here to help you get back to your true essence, which is happiness and love, and live more from your heart rather than your hurt. So if you found this episode enjoyable, I would ask that you share it out with one friend that's going through a tough time right now, that's trying to figure out who they are or what they want to do with their life. This is a beautiful time. This is a beautiful opportunity for you to sit down with yourself, to take yourself out on a date, to sit back, to relax, and to find space to be able to get to know the new and better you.